Did you know? Super Smash Bros Brawl was announced by former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata at E3 2005. During a conference, Iwata mentioned Smash Bros as a title that would feature online multiplayer. Series creator Masahiro Sakurai was surprised by this announcement, as Nintendo hadn't approached him about making a new Smash Bros at the time. Iwata met with Sakurai in private after the announcement and asked him to direct the game. Iwata even told Sakurai that if he refused, Nintendo would simply release a port of Super Smash Bros. Melee with online multiplayer and no other new features. Sakurai agreed, and Super Smash Bros. Brawl officially entered development. Since Sakurai was working as a freelancer, he had no staff immediately on hand for the project. Nintendo veteran Shigeru Miyamoto introduced him to the company Game Arts, who had just wrapped up Grandia 3. Game Arts had developers available to handle the production of Brawl while Sakurai assembled the rest of the team. This was an unconventional way to make a game, and partly relied on Sakurai's planning and his ability to visualize a complete game almost perfectly in his head. During an Iwata Asks interview, Iwata admitted that he'd normally never let a game be made in such a way, but allowed the unorthodox production due to his faith in Sakurai. Since Brawl was such a complex project, it inevitably had characters that were cut from its roster for various reasons. Blastoise was initially considered as a part of the Pokemon Trainers trio of monsters, but was pushed aside for Squirtle in the planning stages. Sakurai seems to have favored the progression from Squirtle to Ivysaur then Charizard, as it provided balance and illustrated Pokemon's evolution mechanic. Another character who was briefly considered for the game was Star Fox's Crystal. Wolf was chosen over Crystal, however, as Crystal is fairly different from other Star Fox characters and would need a new moveset. Wolf's similar design meant he could reuse elements from Fox and Falco, which would save time. Sakurai also wanted Super Mario RPG's Geno to be a playable character in Brawl. Since Geno is owned by Square Enix and not Nintendo, it's believed legal issues prevented him from joining the roster. Animal Crossing's Villager was also considered to appear in Brawl. He decided against the character as Sakurai initially thought they weren't a good fit for a fighting game. Pac-Man was briefly considered for Brawl after Miyamoto suggested Sakurai consider the character. Sakurai seemed to have difficulty establishing a moveset for Pac-Man at the time, which was the main reason Pac-Man wasn't included. Mii's were also considered for the game, but the idea was short-lived. They were mainly scrapped over concerns with online bullying. Two more characters that were planned and possibly worked on for Brawl are Pokemon's Mewtwo and Roy from Fire Emblem. Empty data files reveal that Roy had a unique victory fanfare already made, while Mewtwo had a unique victory fanfare and a Wii remote sound. Dixie Kong was also planned to be part of the game's roster and would have been paired with Diddy Kong. The duo would likely have tagged in and out of play like in Donkey Kong Country 2, but the mechanic was cut due to programming issues early on, and Diddy became his own character. Pokemon's Plusle and Minun seem to have been considered as well. Some files are labeled Pra-Mai, which loosely corresponds to their Japanese names, Purasuru and Mainan. It seems these characters would have played as a duo like Popo and Nana. Both Popo and Nana, and theoretically Diddy and Dixie, are actually two separate characters that are just loaded at the same time. This means that a 4-player match with all Ice Climbers is essentially an 8-fighter match. The container for Pra-Mai is different, as it possibly suggests 2 characters in 1 fighter. This could mean that Plusle and Minun used an unknown mechanic where they played as a single entity. Dr. Mario is also referenced in the game's internal character listing data, as well as Toon Zelda and Toon Sheik. While many believe that Toon Sheik refers to Tetra, there's little evidence to suggest this, and Sakurai has never commented on the characters to confirm or deny this. During development, Sakurai thought about how best to capitalize on the game's all-star roster, and came up with the idea of a giant adventure mode, which would become the Subspace Emissary. In order to write the story for it, Sakurai enlisted the help of Kazushige Nojima, who previously wrote the scenarios for games such as Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts. Nojima's early drafts didn't quite meet Sakurai's expectations, however, and included scenes such as Samus and Donkey Kong riding to the stadium in a bus, while Snake watched from a distance. Sakurai wanted the story to have a more serious tone, so the two worked together to produce the final story. Working on the Subspace Emissary proved to be a huge task, and required as much work as an entire standalone game. This portion of the game was supposed to be made by an outside studio, but Sakurai couldn't find a suitable studio for the daunting project. Part of the reason why Subspace Emissary took so much work is because the animators manually recreated footage that Sakurai recorded himself. In order to ensure the animators knew exactly how to represent the various characters in the game, Sakurai physically acted out the cutscenes. This added a lot of work to the Subspace Emissary, as no motion capture manufacturing was used. The reason that Wolf, Jigglypuff, and Toon Link only appear at the end of the adventure mode and play no role in the story is because they were added to the game at the end of development and actually came extremely close to being cut entirely. Sonic the Hedgehog, likewise, only appears at the very end of the story for similar reasons. That said, Sonic was actually planned to be in the game from the beginning. According to the book History of Sonic, Sega initially refused Nintendo's request to include Sonic, and the project had to continue without him. Eventually, Sega changed their minds and allowed Sonic to participate, but it happened so late into production that it caused the game to be delayed. A possible offshoot of this is Sonic's Victory Fanfare, which is actually the Stage Clear theme lifted straight from the soundtrack of 2006's Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic's fanfare is the only one in Brawl to be taken from another game rather than being an original composition. Another audio secret is that the voice actor for King Dedede is none other than Masahiro Sakurai himself. The game's announcer, as well as the voice of Master Hand, was Pat Cashman, who is perhaps most famous for his role as the narrator on the show, Bill Nye the Science Guy. There's another notable name in the game's credits. Goichi Suda, the creator of No More Heroes and Killer 7, has a special thanks in Brawl's credits. According to an interview with Source Gaming, this is because Suda allowed his development studio, Grasshopper Manufacture, to assist with Brawl's audio. Brawl also has several unseen secrets. The textures for the trophy of Perry, Peach's talking parasol from Super Princess Peach, have similar file names as the textures for Peach herself. Additionally, the in-game model for Peach's parasol is labeled Kasar, which is the Japanese name for Perry. This seems to suggest that Peach was originally planned to use Perry in her moveset instead of her normal parasol. Another secret relating to textures was mentioned by Sakurai in an interview with Nintendo Dream. Sakurai revealed that Brawl was planned to include a mechanic where the characters' weapons and armor would be damaged and even break during a fight. This would put more skilled players who were able to survive for a longer period of time at a disadvantage. Ultimately, these ideas were scrapped due to time constraints. However, there was a large amount of work done on the concept, and damaged armor textures for several characters can still be found in the game's files. A texture for Link also holds textures for Twilight Princess's Ordon sword, despite the sword not appearing in the game. A texture for the Metroid Assist trophy also contains a small illustration of Earthbound's Mr. Saturn. Mr. Saturn's position on the texture makes sure the doodle stays hidden in-game. Another hidden detail can be found on the Mario Circuit stage. Although players only fight in a small area, the entire course is modeled. Super Smash Bros Brawl had a large impact on gaming. One example of its impact is a fan creation that became the longest known work of English literature. The Brawl fanfiction is over 4 million words long, making it about 8.5 times the length of the Lord of the Rings books. Did you also know that Brawl's assist trophies were originally planned to appear in Melee? Or that both Sonic and Snake were considered for Melee as well? For more Smash Bros facts, click the annotation on screen. Also check out Source Gaming, which most of this episode's trivia came from.